Hello, welcome to my presentation of my capstone project. My project is focused on the topic of improving and keeping bonds between parents and children who are in the foster care system. My name is Matthew Lang, and I became interested in this topic for a couple different reasons. I myself was never in the foster care system, um, but I did have a great deal of experiences with my parents who didn't get the support that they needed through the problems that they were going through. Um, I also, I'm not sure if they had the resources to help back then. It was a little bit ago, or if those services existed, if they were even accessible to my parents at that time. So throughout my experiences when I was growing up, it took me a while to figure out my passion and what I wanted to do with my life. In the middle of raising my old children, I've kind of realized what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and that was to work with kids. I went back to school. I finished. Ended up with my BASW, and then I started working for the Department of Children, Youth, and Families. As a social worker, and I'm a CFWS social worker. So that means that my job is to basically work the back end, and that means that I work to reunite families together. While doing that work, I kind of realized that there's a lot of parents, or there were a lot of parents that are struggling with reunification for a variety of different reasons. Such as being overwhelmed with the amount of services that need to be completed. There was also kind of the shock or embarrassment or stigma of having your children taken away from you, which kind of adds to not necessarily wanting to engage in those services that have been ordered or recommended. And then the the toughest thing is when parents struggle with substance abuse. I found out it was my job to work with the parents to guide them to complete their services while making sure to keep the bond between parents and their children strong. To do this, we need to reduce the stigma for these parents and work on educating them, um, while also educating the foster parents and working with community resource leaders. Um, So we want to keep the bonds and reunite these families. To do that, we developed a training program to support the children and the parents. Um, so basically, if we go through our needs statement, it says that parents experiencing drug addiction need to identify and engage in services so they can successfully reunite with their children who are in foster care. Um, this will lead us to our problem statement, where we say that parents experiencing drug addiction have difficulty reuniting with their children who are in foster care. So that brings us to our mission statement, where we want to empower parents to achieve and sustain their bonds with their children. And to do that, we've created a training program that will show social workers, foster parents, and bio parents how to better support one another. So we would have the social worker go through a 10-week training program. And in that training program, it would the training program would be 2 hours a week. So it's not super intensive for the social workers or too time consuming. So with support of their unit, of their supervisor, and with support of their higher ups, this should be a program that could be implemented pretty easily with minimal cost. So again, the training is about 10 weeks long, about 2 hours a day, once a week. So the social worker will learn how to build and show empathy, because you're going to need that empathy to be able to understand and um, help those parents who are struggling at the time. Um, we want to show them how to build relationships with the parents, and to do that, we need to have those one-on-ones. We also want to build relationships with the caregivers, the foster parents, and also with the children. um, then we need to reach out to our communities, and we need to make sure that we're building relationships with our community providers. We want to make sure that we're out in the courts, building relationships with attorneys, um, making sure that they know the program that we're trying to work with, and trying to make everybody's lives a little bit better. Um, and then we want to take a week and look at how we're doing referrals. Sometimes referrals can get messy because there's so many referrals that need to be done, and we want to make sure that we do those referrals in the right order, and we want to make sure that we're doing those referrals to community providers that do follow up and do a great job with the parents. Um, and then we'll also take the social workers through some training about how to document correctly and use time management skills to their advantage to make sure that they can get accomplished what needs to be accomplished. Um, then towards the end of the training, the social worker is actually going to be the one who trains the foster parents. And so we want to have those social workers take their knowledge that they learned over the last 10 weeks, and train those caregivers in the proper way to build relationships with the children. We need to make sure that caregivers are supportive. I've kind of seen it go both ways, where foster parents, and it's hard not to, but foster parents are so into it's hard. I'm sorry. It's hard to explain this, but foster parents are a little overwhelmed, and they take things a little bit too personally. Maybe that's not the right choice of words, but anyways, there's not a bunch of support. We want to make sure that the foster parents are supportive of their parents, and they understand what the parents are going through, or at least have an idea, so that they also build empathy. Um, we don't want anybody bad mouthing anybody else. So we want to take those foster parents through that training so that they're able to support, again, so that they're able to support the children, and even they can even support the parents if they want to, um, if they make themselves available to be able to do that. Um, the social worker will then, after they're done working with foster parents, or at least through that training period, 4-week training period, then they'll start working with the parents. Um, we want to make sure that we're meeting with the parents, and making sure that they understand how important it is to keep bonds with their children. And we want to make sure that there's clear expectations that are set, and making sure that they understand their own court-ordered services. Some parents that I've met with just don't really understand what is expected of them and what they need to do. Um, we want to make sure that they have the tools to engage in those services, such as transportation. That's a big one. There's many parents who are homeless, and they just don't have the way to get from point A to point B, especially if it's in the middle of the day, and they need to get to whatever services are referred. Um, we got to make sure that we're either giving rides to those parents, bus passes, orca passes, whatever it is, to make sure that the parents can engage in the services that are recommended or court ordered. Um, And once we're done with those trainings, what we can do is we can evaluate our program by looking at two outcomes. The first outcome would be having the parents um, would be having the parents increase their utilization of using community services. We would measure that by making sure that the parents are meeting with social workers and engaging in planning. The parents should have some one-on-one and not just being directed on what they're supposed to be doing, but have some input on what they're doing and why they're doing it, and celebrate these results that they have. We need to also measure how effectively the parents are engaging in their court-ordered services or the recommended services. Again, that's going to require the social worker to use some empathy, making sure that they're there for them, that they're encouraging, and they're celebrating the small milestones that they're hitting, especially when they're completing and doing a great job in their services. Another outcome is that we want to improve the stability in the child's living environment. And so to do that, we need to make sure that the kids are encouraged. They're always connected with their parents as much as they possibly can. Usually through the courts, there'll be some recommended visitations, but those recommended visitations could be as little as 2 to 4 hours a week. And it's hard to keep a bond with your child when you have other caretakers that are taking care of your children and you only have 4 hours with your child. It can be rough too when parents don't have that positive contact with their children. So we recommend to, well, that'll be part of the training, is that we want to make sure that the parents know what to talk about and how to talk to their children so that they can keep those bonds going with their child. And their children will also kind of feel abandoned because they're not with their parents anymore. And they have some other people that are taking care of them that seem to put more into it than their parents could have when their parents had them, because of substance abuse and other things that could be going on. So to make this program work, what we have to do is we have to make sure that we have dedicated social workers and make sure they have time and the support to make this program successful. So we need support, again, from the unit, from the supervisors, from all the higher ups, to make sure that the social workers have time to be able to dedicate themselves to these parents and to the kids, so that we can make sure that bonds are solid. Children are happy and in care as much as they need to be, and the parents are working on their substance abuse problems or whatever it may be so that they can get their kids back. A couple of things that need to be in place for this program is to be successful is that the parents are going to have to want to participate, because we can't force them, and when we try to force the parents, it just doesn't end up working in the end. The parents just aren't going to do something that they're not ready for. Okay, well, thank you so much for listening to my presentation today. If you have any questions, my email is on the bottom of the poster of the slide. Please feel free to reach out. Okay, thank you so much.